Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
We got the same blood, the same blood. Stay by your side, it's ride or die. We've got the same blood. We're the run toward the fire.
Welcome back to Forged in the Fires. This is your host, Rob Verhelst, otherwise known, or actually better known as Fireman Rob. I have a great guest today. This gentleman, I can't tell you enough about him. He's a top-rated sales keynote speaker. They call him the pitch whisperer. John Livesay, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Nice to be with you, Rob.
So, there's a lot of things to go over in your bio and everything that you talk about. You have a great book, Better Selling Through Storytelling. I can't tell you how powerful storytelling is for myself. Tell me more about that book and how powerful that storytelling is to a sales professional.
Well, the first thing I think you need to realize is that even if you're not in sales, you are selling yourself all the time. You sell yourself to get hired. You sell yourself to get promoted. You sell yourself to get a new job. You sell yourself to get a date. Our kids typically are selling us all the time. Well, I need this. I don't want it. I need this. So
true.
So this concept of selling being only for a specific group of people is really changing big time. Even lawyers who I work with, a lot of law firms, they didn't even used to be allowed to sell their services. They would just write papers and speak and hope they get referrals, but now they can actually sell. So the concept that why so many people resist the term, and even people who call themselves salespeople, they go, oh, can you call me an account executive or in charge of business development or anything but a salesperson? So that first thing I want to do is to get people to let go of some of that negative perception of what, quote, selling is. And I tell people, just start thinking of yourself as a storyteller, because the old way of selling is just to push a bunch of information out and hope some of it sticks. And of course, the new way is to tell stories that make you magnetic and memorable, because when you're selling and telling a bunch of information, people don't remember anything you said 10 minutes after you walk out.
That's so true. That's so true. Because realistically, I love that idea of you're selling yourself every day. You're a brand in yourself. Like you were saying, whether you're going for a job or you're working for a company and selling a product, it is really who you are that is helping to sell that. And your book is amazing. I love the utilization of a ladder. Being a fireman, it's a great depiction. When you're talking about this ladder, you have the eyes that go through the ladder, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's an alliteration. It took me a while to figure out how they all would start with the letter I. It helps make it memorable, hopefully.
Can you go over some of those?
Sure. I also compare it to dating. So again, it gives people a frame of reference. So at the very bottom is when you're invisible and you look like a movie star. So you've never had this happen to you, but some of us have, been in the dating world and, we see someone we're attracted to and you might as well be invisible. And in the business world, someone's never heard of you or your product or your brand, unless you're maybe Coca-Cola, everyone's heard of that. But for the most part, there's some people that don't know you exist. Then the next rung up is insignificant. And Rob, I don't know what's worse in the dating world, invisible or insignificant.
I would have to say both might be.
Painful, yes. Well, let's say somebody says, oh, I sell life insurance. Well, that's insignificant to me because I'm not in the market for that. And then we move up
you're about to die.
Yeah. Then we move up to interesting. And maybe you say something at a party and someone says, oh, I'm interested in what, maybe I wrote you off too fast. I'm not going out with you yet, but I'm at least interested to hear more. And at work, in the sales world, you can say something that people say, oh, I'm interested. Okay, send me information or whatever. I call this being stuck at the friend zone at work. Because you just have these endless conversations. You can never really get somebody to commit to you. And then the next rung up is intriguing. And of course, in the dating world, that's when you paint a picture of, well, if you were to go out with me, Town car would pick us up. We'd go watch the sunset at Griffith Park. People are like, ooh, tell me more. I'm intrigued. And then in the business world, you say something that grabs their attention and they're intrigued. Well, how would that work if we were to do this project together and do something new? And then, of course, you get to the top where it's irresistible. And in dating, that's when you can't stop thinking about the other person. You're constantly texting them. And in the business world, these are our brand ambassadors. These are our clients that absolutely love us. The challenge here is we can take it for granted, like any relationship, and not pay attention to it, and a competitor can come along. So there's something to be said of really figuring out, where do clients see you on this ladder from invisible to irresistible? Because the old way, again, of selling is, all right, break your clients and prospects into A, B, and C categories of what percentages you think they're going to come in. Well, clients don't think of themselves as percentages. And so the whole goal is to get you to flip your perception and say, how do they see me on this ladder? Am I just interesting to them and they're never going to buy? Or what can I do to get at least to intriguing? And much like dating, nobody asks somebody to get married typically on the first coffee date. And yet some salespeople walk in going, hey, I'm Fireman Rob. Want to buy everything I have to sell? And like, maybe,
but maybe not.
Yeah.
I love that. Do you know where people see you? And then it's also, you write, do you know where you are? And one of the clients that you had, an architectural firm, they didn't understand that. And they're $1 billion in revenues. And you went in there and helped them to understand why maybe people weren't seeing them. Is that correct?
Well, almost. The company is Gensler. It's the world's largest architecture firm. And I believe they are a $5 billion company already, but they were up for a $1 billion project to renovate the Pittsburgh airport. And the client said to them, we're going to hire the firm we like the most because we have to work with you for 5 years. And that's what they didn't really grasp. How do we go in an hour and make us likable? Because most people think of us as we just show the designs and hope that's enough. So that's really where the aha moment was for them. I said, well, storytelling makes you likable and memorable. So tell me a story about, what are you going to say on the team slide? Well, my name's Bob. I've been here 10 years. I do this and this. Okay, that's not really interesting. Bob, what made you become an architect? Well, I played with Legos when I was 11, and now I have a son that's 11. I still play with Legos, and I still have that same passion that I'd bring to the project. Okay, great. How about you, Sue? Where'd you work before here? Oh, I was in the Israeli army. Great. You're going to bring that same discipline and focus you learned there into making sure this project comes on time and under budget. So that's what started to make this team likable, because they started to get a sense of who they are as people.
I love that storytelling of understanding the different capabilities of individuals, because that really speaks to the power of a team and the power of each story actually multiplying to make something bigger. And I think you really hit it on the head with that architectural firm. Now, when you're talking about the dating scene, because that is, I love the way that you put that analogy in there. When you say, remember, invisible isn't bad, it's just bottom. And so know it and accept it. I think that's a great principle to talk about.
Yes, because everybody has to start somewhere. But don't act like you're irresistible when they don't even know anything about you. So it's just the process of realizing there is a process.
Right. That is such a good statement. Now, the sales force, and you said you know a lot of people that don't want to be called sales people in essence, because they want to have different titles. Now, the storytelling component of the communication, what are some little things that you could help with individuals that are looking to be able to tell their story to help themselves in their lines of work, whether it be from firefighting, dealing with critical situations, to somebody who is in the pharmaceutical industry? What are some little things that they can take away to learn daily habits?
Well, I think the first thing you have to realize is that you sell yourself first, and then you sell your company, even if it's your own firm and you're a one-person company. And then you get into what the product or service does and tell that story. So first, it's just being aware. Most people skip the first two and jump right into the features with no story.
That makes sense.
So if you have your own story of origin, how did you become a fireman? Did you know it from a kid? What did you love most about it? What were the biggest challenges? Have a little something there that grabs people's attention. Let's play with this a little bit. So when did you know you wanted to be a fireman, Rob?
I would have been later in life, after I figured that college wasn't the greatest thing for me. I needed something that was dynamic.
Right. And you had a military background, I remember reading, correct?
That's correct, sir.
So you were in the military, and then of all the things you could do after that, you decided all the training you had, was it the Air Force?
Air Force,
Is that right?
Yep.
Would there would be some transferable skills. So what was the number one skill you learned in the Air Force that made you a good fireman?
I would say integrity first would be one of the best skills.
Okay, got it. So when you say you're going to show up for your shift, you show up for your shift. And that's just like the minimum requirement, but let's just start there.
Right.
As a basic. So then what would you say is the story of firemen in general? There's been such a history. There's even people who volunteer to be firemen. But as far as what is it about firemen? What's the story that people have? Is it that they're fearless? Is it that they are kind? They're saving cats off trees. What is it that you
I think that would be the biggest one.
Is it?
Cats off trees.
What is it that you think? What's the story that people think of when they hear I'm a fireman or someone so that's what the career is?
I think it goes to the level of courageous. I think a lot of people think of courageous and dependable.
Got it.
When they call, you're there.
Got it. Okay. And then finally, you as a keynote speaker, you go and you speak to all kinds of companies around leadership, I'm guessing.
That's correct.
So your story would then be, from the time I was in the Air Force, one of the number one things I took away from that experience was integrity, which allowed me to become a really excellent fireman. And one of the things that's so important about being a fireman is you must have courage and dependability. When people need you, you show up. And guess what? If we look at those three qualities of integrity, courage, and dependability, that is what defines a good leader today. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about. The lessons I've learned in my own career can now be something that you're going to be able to take into your own life so that you can become better leaders at home and at work.
That's a beautiful, this is why you are who you are, because you broke it down so simply to be able to put it in a beautiful, eloquent manner in a great pitch way. I love it.
Thanks.
I love it. And that's why you're so successful. That's a great way to break it down. And definitely for anybody who's listening, if you want to find out more, you can go to John's website. It's johnlivesay.com. He has his book on there, Better Selling Through Storytelling. Also, if you want to have John come out and speak to your company, to your group, as you've heard on this podcast, he's one of the best about giving you the abilities to use storytelling not only in your life, but also in your business. John, actually going on here, it was your TED Talk. Your TED Talk, I loved it. We've talked about this before. Lifeguard for your own life. Tell me more about that story that you told in the TED Talk you said was it 30 years ago that you did that? Not the TED Talk,
100 years ago.
When you were a lifeguard.
Yes, I'm 100 years old, so it was a long, long time ago. Yes, more than 30 years ago. We'll just leave it at that. When I was a teenager, and the name of the TEDx talk is Be the Lifeguard of Your Own Life. And I realized that unlike in a hurricane, no one's going to come rescue you and send in a helicopter if you don't evacuate. So when I was lifeguarding, usually it's all about, especially when you're a teenager, you're like, I look cool. I've got zinc oxide on my nose and mirror sunglasses, and I'm walking around with a tan, and you're 17 or 18, you're like, woo, I'm hot stuff. And, mostly your job is to keep people in the pool safe. But, 99% of the time it was blowing your whistle and telling kids not to run on wet cement. But that one moment from the training when there's a little girl on the diving board that had a lot of fear, and she dived, and I was like, oh, she's underwater too long. She comes up flailing, and I had to dive in and pull her to the side. I remembered, wow, I didn't panic. I stayed calm. My training paid off. And I'm sure you, Rob, know that more than anybody is. That's what the training is for, in those moments that you don't panic. And of course, that life lesson of not panicking and staying calm has served me my whole career, including many years later after working at Condé Nast for 15 years and getting laid off. Other people were mad and just storming out. I said, wait a minute, don't you need a status report of where things are supposed to go? And they said, well, that would be great, but everyone else is leaving. And that one decision to not panic and stay calm and do the right thing really benefited me, because 2 years later, they ended up hiring me back and I ended up winning Salesperson of the Year.
Oh, wow.
So that whole journey, I really attribute to the skills that I learned all those years ago as a lifeguard.
And it translates. A lot of the things we do in our lives translates, and also it provides for great stories. So you can use them as TEDx talks, right?
Yeah.
I'd asked you, what is one of the greatest accomplishments that you felt that you had in your life? And you said getting people off the sofa steamroller coaster. Tell me more about that.
Well, that's a typo. I meant to say self-esteem roller coaster.
I like
instead of
that steam
sofa.
roller coaster. I think you should keep this one.
Yeah, what the heck is what is a self-esteem? Now, I was on this self-esteem roller coaster, Rob, where I would only feel good about myself if my numbers were up, and bad about myself if my numbers were down, or good if I was winning an award, and bad about myself if I was being laid off. And I just realized, wait a minute, I'm the same person, and my identity is more than what my job is or what any one particular outcome is. So that's really that insight and the ability to give talks and help other salespeople get off of that self-esteem roller coaster so that they don't, because, in the retail world at Christmas time, they're measuring, last year, December 20th at 12 to 1, you sold this much. And this year you've only sold that much. I mean, you could be on up and down hourly
Right.
if you are only looking on your outside results to give yourself a sense of who you are being worth anything. So I would say that's been one of the biggest accomplishments of helping people get a sense of who they are is bigger than any one thing happening to
I
them.
love that. I love that. And if anybody who wants to get a sneak peek at your book, they can text the word pitch to 66866. Is that correct?
Yes, and you have to really emphasize what you did, the P in pitch.
In pitch.
Because otherwise people think it's a different
Yes.
word, and I get a lot of, confused looks.
You'll get
So,
a
yes,
much different
simply
book than
text-
yours.
Yes, a whole
It's
different
a whole
thing.
different
Yeah.
thing that you don't want to get. Now, John, I can't thank you enough. You're such a humble individual as well as an individual that is very giving. And I love that I saw that you also contribute a lot to a charity that you're close to out in there in LA. And
Yeah, it's called Project Angel Food.
yeah, and tell us more about Project Angel Food.
It delivers food to people who are ill with homebound illnesses, anything from breast cancer to HIV or AIDS. And so it just really helps those people not just get a healthy meal, but also get some contact with somebody who cares about them. And it's really that personal connection. Sometimes that's the only person the person sees all day.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, when we're going back to your speaking, the things that people can take away when they have you come on stage and they have you talk to their employees, it's not only about the storytelling part. What are some of the things that the companies will feel that their employees will take away from your speeches?
Well, in addition to, we turn case studies into case stories. So that's a big aha moment for most people because the case studies by themselves
Right.
are pretty boring. But when I tell them turning it into a story, and I can give you a quick example if
Definitely.
you want to hear it. Back to Gensler again. They were pitching that Pittsburgh airport and they had some great before and after pictures of another airport they had done, but there was no story. So I said, I worked with them on the story, and the story that caused them to win this $1 billion project, in addition to the stories they told about themselves, was that 2 years ago, JetBlue at JFK had hired them to renovate that airport. And one of the challenges they had during the project was they had to rip up all the floors in the middle of the night and do it between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. so that the stores could open on time. So they knew what could possibly go wrong, having done this many times, and they had all their vendors on call. And sure enough, at 2 a.m, a fuse blew, and they had somebody there in 20 minutes to fix it. And at 8:59, the last tile went down and all the stores opened on time. And now a year after that renovation, sales are up 15% because they've designed such a beautiful place. People are spending more time shopping. So that's very different than saying, we use critical thinking to anticipate problems. We showed it in a story.
That sounds so much better. It sounds more impactful. And at the same time, stories are so much, people take away more from stories than they do from statistics. That's for sure.
When you tell a good story, you know you've told a good story when people repeat your story to other people.
So true.
Oh, right. They remember it enough that they can tell other people. And that's how you create brand ambassadors and all kinds of
That
good
is so
stuff.
true. Well, John, I can't thank you enough for coming on this podcast. Your information, your kindness, and everything that you put out there as far as being able to tell the story. And I love storytelling. That's really how I go about and tell my story through speaking. I think it's such a powerful thing because it comes from the heart. It also at the same time has such an impact. I end all my podcasts with the same things. I asked 3 different questions for you. I didn't give them to you ahead of time, so this could be interesting, right?
It's the hot seat. No pun intended about being a fireman.
With no extinguishers in sight. All right. So the first question is, what is one thing you haven't done but is outside your comfort zone?
Well, I would say there's a lot of things I haven't done. Well, I agreed to go on this weekend trip with some friends golfing. And that may not sound like a big deal. And I've tried to play golf a few times, but I'm no good at it. The hand-eye coordination is not something that's my thing. But they said, oh, that's just part of the weekend. It's not. I said, I'll just ride around the cart, whatever. So for me, that's out of my comfort zone to go on a golf course, especially with professional people who play all the time. So, but I'm doing it because I want to get to know people better and spend time with them and push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit of like, you don't have to be the best at everything you do, John. It's okay not to be good at something and still show up.
That goes back to what you said earlier. Definitely. I like it. So the second question, here it is. Your favorite quote and why?
That would be Arthur Ashe, the former famous tennis player, who said the key to success is confidence and the key to confidence is preparation. And the reason I love it so much is that's been the key to my success is preparation. I really take the time to understand my clients, especially if I'm giving a talk to the audience, and really understand their pain points. And I remember giving a talk to Anthem Insurance, and afterwards people came up to me and they said, how long have you worked in healthcare? I'm like, I don't. I just learned your acronyms and your structure. So that's really, I think, the best advice anybody can ever do is the more prepared you are, the more confident you are, and you'll be more successful, just like an athlete.
Yes. All right. Here's your last question. This is always the hardest one, and it may take some thought here. If you could pick to have coffee with 3 people, they can be deceased or alive, at a firehouse coffee table. So in other words, no questions are off the table. You can have whatever conversation you want to have. Who would it be and why?
Well, Abraham Lincoln, because I'm from Illinois.
That is a good one.
And that was kind of a childhood idol. And I was always and now I've read so many books about him and saw the Daniel Day-Lewis movie. And I would be fascinated to hear, his struggles and how he stayed so committed to ending slavery when he's fighting with his own depression and his wife's challenges. And, it's not like he had an easy life. So that's the first person I think I would really enjoy having coffee with. The second person, I think I'd like to put Elon Musk on that list.
Oh, wow.
I'd be famous. I think, to hear anybody who's created an electric car company and wants to go to the moon would be somebody that I would find really interesting. And
the last one.
Let's see. The last one would be Audrey Hepburn.
Wow.
I was completely fascinated by her life as an actress, but more interesting to me is her commitment to UNICEF towards the end of her career and using her fame for good like that. And also, surviving the war and barely having enough money to eat. So she's the ultimate rags to riches story.
Wow. Now that is an eclectic coffee group right there. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Then the last part, and this is not a psychology test, this is a rapid round questions. Everybody does it. So everybody from one of the directors in the ATF that I have interviewed to Ironman people to yourself.
Oh, yes.
So they can kind of get an idea of this disparaging difference or the similarity. All right, you ready? So I'm going to give you 2 things, and all you got to say is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's the first one. Paper or plastic?
Paper.
Soup or salad?
Salad.
McDonald's or Taco Bell?
McDonald's.
That's the toughest one of everybody's.
Yeah.
Camping or hotel?
Hotel.
Fly or drive?
Fly.
Sleep in late or wake up early?
Sleep in late.
That's my guy. I knew you were that guy. I love it. Run or walk?
Walk.
Partly sunny or partly cloudy?
Partly sunny.
Fire or water?
Water.
Now here's the question that stumps everybody. Use a porta potty or continue to the next physical bathroom?
Next physical bathroom, please.
That away. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
And go big or go home?
Big.
All right. John Livesay, thank you so much for coming on this podcast today. If you want to learn more about John Livesay, go to johnlivesay.com. He has his books on there. You can also hire him to be the next speaker at your event. John, thanks again for coming on this podcast, and thanks for all the advice.
Thanks for all the fun questions. It was a blast.
Definitely. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.